Hello everyone, Just Podcast TV is here. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified on new contents.
226. Failure in Seniority. Campbell stood up and wiped away her tears of grievance as she argued with the vice president. Why should I apologize to him? What did I do wrong that violated the work regulations? You pointed out. I will admit it. And what right do you have to say that I instigated the crowd? I haven't even spoken a single word to anyone from the beginning to the end. This video can be used as a witness. What evidence do you have to say that I instigated the crowd and even threatened me with my work? I know. Aren't you afraid of running away from a big client like Danny? So I don't expect you, the leader, to uphold justice. I only hope that you can pull him aside. Whether you like to pretend to be a son or a grandson is up to you. But what right do you have to make me apologize to him and admit my mistakes? Am I wrong? If you insist on doing this, I will file a complaint with the president. If the president doesn't want me to, I'll file a complaint with the branch. If the branch doesn't want me to, I will file a complaint. I will file a complaint with the branch manager. I don't believe there's no place for me to reason with. Campbell's stubbornness and resistance caused everyone to applaud. They even applauded to cheer Campbell up. It was still the most fundamental problem. No one had the right. The deputy president had the right. So he angrily pointed at Campbell. Campbell, as a bank employee, you openly investigate the masses to disrupt the financial order. As the vice president in charge of personnel, I have the right to announce and inform you that you are fired. Please leave our bank immediately. Campbell was furious. She had never thought that she would encounter such a thing. She worked hard and worked hard. Finally, she entered the bank system and became an official employee. But she never would have thought that she would encounter such unfair treatment today. And she didn't even have the chance to appeal. If she was fired, what right did she have to appeal? Even her work number would be canceled. It could be said that she would be tied up and beaten up. Even if she was beaten up, she had no chance to retaliate. At this time, Danny was still singing with a smile on his face. Ah, my friend, get lost. My friend, get lost. My friend, get lost. Get lost. If you want to get into bed, you can call me. Acting like a hooligan in public and in front of the vice president. However, the vice president just smiled awkwardly at the side and almost said, Little Danny, your singing is so beautiful. Very shameless. Danny was arrogant, and this vice president was shameless. These two people joined hands and bullied Campbell, a little girl. At this moment, Campbell had no place to complain about her wrongdoing. She suffered a lot, but she did not even have a place to complain. At that time, she was so angry that she cried out in pain. She felt that after studying for more than 10 years, the culture that she had learned was completely useless. No matter how hard she tried to change her fate, she was unable to compete with the person who was born with a golden spoon in his mouth. At this time, she had a feeling of wanting to die. Facing the pressure of this society, she really had no strength to resist. Because the vice president's shamelessness and Danny's arrogance had tied her up so badly that she didn't even have the right to resist. Even though the surrounding crowd was filled with righteous indignation, it didn't help her at all. At this time, Campbell really felt helpless. But just as she squatted down and hugged her head while crying bitterly, someone came in front of her and patted her on the arm. She resisted for a bit. She didn't want to see who patted her, but that person continued to pat her. When she was slapped until she was impatient to watch, she saw a cup of warm tea and a smiling face. A cup of tea you poured for me just now is warm now, but I didn't drink it, so you can drink it without worry. Campbell did not know what Zach meant, so she foolishly squatted on the spot and did not move. Zach did not force her to get up. He only held her hand and held the cup of warm tea. In the next moment, Zach said to Campbell, Go sit by the side and drink tea. In half an hour, I will let these two be taught a lesson and jump like rabbits. They even have to jump while the little rabbit obediently opens the door. The change in the song and the meaning of scolding made Campbell unable to hold back her tears and laugh. Then she still said, "Thank you for your good intentions. No need. You just go and do your business." Danny was so fierce and arrogant. She didn't want Zach to provoke Danny because of her. In her opinion, Zach was just ordinary financial personnel in the company. He didn't have the ability to uphold justice for her. Instead, he would provoke Danny's revenge. However, her good intentions only brought Zach a bright smile. "It's all right. Let's see how I'm going to eliminate these two jokers." In the end, Zach had offended Danny. Furthermore, Campbell didn't even have the chance to speak before she beat Danny. Looking at Zach from head to toe, Danny came in front of him and asked with a sneer, "Who didn't tighten their pants and expose a hero like you?" Zach replied, "Your grandmother's crotches weren't tightened, so calculate what you should call me." Danny subconsciously calculated, and then his expression changed when he calculated his grandfather's generation. As he approached Zach, he wished he could stick the tip of his nose to Zach's nose, and his eyes were filled with fierceness. "You are a tough guy, So you probably don't know who I, Danny, am, right?" Zach replied, "It's probably because you haven't calculated the seniority. If you have, you should know that you are my bitch." Danny was so angry that he didn't even say a word. He waved his hand and was about to hit him. However, this moment was as slow as an old bull pulling a broken cart. Zach even felt like he was bullying him. It was just like how a kindergarten kid would use his feet to point at him. He could dodge, but it wasn't appropriate to hit him when he fought back. Therefore, after taking half a step back, Zach easily dodged Danny's fist. When Danny's fist hit empty air, Zach lost his strength and staggered. He almost fell to the ground. He staggered 2 or 3 steps in the hall before he could stabilize himself. He was in a sorry state. Zach asked with a smile, "You think you can offend your superiors with just this little ability? You don't respect your ancestor?" Danny got angrier and angrier. He raised his leg and kicked. It was very powerful and looked very powerful. If there was a 3-year-old baby in front of him, he would be sent flying with a kick. However, a 4-year-old couldn't do it. Because he had a lot of weight, he could at most kick it down. Seeing how powerful he was, Zach also moved his toes to help him. He supported the leg that he kicked and looked forward. In this area, Danny, who was standing on his own, couldn't stand any longer. He slammed to the ground. His movements were very gorgeous, and he didn't have a good posture. However, he didn't feel good about it. Danny's face immediately changed because of the pain. He covered his crotch and both of his hands and laid on the ground with a painful expression on his face. One could clearly see that his ears had turned red. Zach asked with a smile, "You dare to fight me with such little ability? Why are you so stubborn?" Danny was in so much pain that he could not speak. He pulled out a hand and pointed at the summon, but his eyes were looking at the deputy president. The vice president was also very sensible. He angrily walked towards Zach and said, "How dare you hit someone in the bank? You are simply lawless. Security! Security! Arrest him! Hurry up and call 911 to call the police and send him to the detention center!" Episode 227. It's bad to form a team. The vice president thought of calling security. He had never thought about it when Campbell was kicked. 2 security guards ran over with batons in their hands, but it seemed like it would take a lot of effort to run. The 2 of them were already in their 50s, so they only closed the door and ordered the car to stop. The rest of the things were terrible. When the 2 security guards came close, Zach took out his bank card unhurriedly. "Are you going to arrest a big client too?" Don't you care about big clients in the bank? You've offended me. Aren't you afraid that I won't cooperate with you? The deputy president was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that Zach was also a big client. Thinking about it carefully, Zach really did walk out of the big client room. However, his personal savings exceeded 1 million, and his company's savings exceeded 10 million. These were all big clients. For someone like Zach, he was obviously not as good as Danny. One had to know that the business of Crystal Supermarket behind Danny and their bank was close to 1 million a day. It was very big. Zach. Who cares where he got such a small fry? In any case, there was definitely no such thing as Danny's huge fortune. With a comparison in his heart, the vice president immediately roared, "I don't care! One of our banks is a model of law-abiding citizens. We need to protect the legal rights of every customer. Even if you are a distinguished customer of the president, you must be punished for breaking the law." Zach spoke. Such an imposing and dignified man. Campbell has suffered a kick just now. Why did you pretend to be deaf and mute? Did you forget about legal rights and law-abiding at that time? Your amnesia is very powerful. It has to be treated. If you don't treat it, you'll die easily. The deputy president was ridiculed to the point of no return, but he had nothing else to say. He could only order the security guards to quickly arrest Zach. Zach waved his hand again. "Don't worry, you can arrest me. I'll withdraw a payment first." After throwing the bank card to the vice president, Zach said, "Go, give me $10 million first. I want it all in cash." Subconsciously, he covered the bank card on his face. He did not care about the pain on his face. The vice president was still thinking about the number. 10 million. And he still needed cash. Was this guy crazy? How could he withdraw money like this? But at the next moment, Danny reminded him. Danny said in pain, "He is blowing smoke." The vice president suddenly realized, "You want to use this to stall for time, and then take the opportunity to leave with the card. That way, you can escape the police's punishment." Ha ha ha! What a scheme! You really know how to build up falsehoods. The ATM machine is right beside you. If you don't want others to help you investigate, Zach interrupted the vice president without giving him a chance to finish his sentence. "Hurry up and go. Don't stand there and look at your fat body. Hurry up and investigate. I'm in a hurry." The vice president didn't know where Zach got his courage from, but he didn't care to check. He didn't think this guy was putting on a wall. Without giving him a chance to think, Zach waved at Campbell, who was standing not far away. "Aren't you the lobby manager? Help me check. The password is 6/8. Go check it." Campbell was very embarrassed. She did not know how to check. It was not that she did not understand the operating procedure, but the bank did not allow such a simple password to be set. So she thought that Zach was indeed installing a wall. Although it was not very good to say that, that was the truth. She felt that Zach wanted her to pretend that he had $10 million in savings, but she was a lobby manager and not a programmer. Even if she was a programmer, she could not change it in such a short amount of time. Campbell stood there awkwardly and did not know what to do. She could only comfort Zach. "You should leave quickly. I know you are kind. Today's matter has nothing to do with you." Zach was very helpless and could only wave his hand at Campbell. "You should go in, sit by the side. I will wait for these two to sing for you. I will go and investigate myself. After checking, remember to arrange for someone to withdraw money for me. I only want cash." At this time, the deputy president's confidence came. His thoughts were the same as Campbell's. He thought that Zach was pretending to be a man and wanted to work with Campbell to fake it. Campbell could not make it, so she did not dare to investigate. Since that was the case, he dared. Just when Zach wanted to take back the bank card, he grabbed it tightly and walked quickly towards the ATM. As he grumbled, the vice president inserted the bank card into the ATM machine and entered the password. Then he looked at Zach proudly. "Hurry up and think of a new password. Don't think about the automatic lock of the password 3 times, because I'm the vice president. I have the authority to unlock and reset the password for the user. The 2 cents inside you. As he said that, a customer pointed at the ATM screen and said, "How many zeros are there?" The deputy president didn't understand what he meant. How could there be zeros? Could it be that the password was right and the balance was shown? He turned around to take a look. Damn, it was true. Then, the deputy president also felt that his mathematics weren't too good and started counting. He muttered as he counted, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 zeros! 100 million was only 8 zeros. What kind of concept was 9 zeros? That was an entire $1 billion. The deputy president was frightened out of his wits. He counted again, and it was still the same. He muttered, "Impossible! This machine must be broken! It must be! Let's change to another one!" He exited the card and went to the other ATM next to him. The same action, the same operating method, and the result was naturally the same. He felt that this ATM was broken in a group with the previous ATM. Hence, he found the third one. However, the moment the card was inserted, he quickly pulled it out and ran to the counter with quick steps. "Help me check this card! I want to know how much money is inside!" Very quickly, the staff member helped him confirm the result with a dumbfounded expression. "Mr. President, it is indeed $1 billion. It was over. Now, even the computer in the counter was broken. It was broken by a group of people. The vice president swallowed his saliva and looked at Zach with a dumbfounded expression. He did not know what to say. Could it be that the group was bad? He was not a fool. The possibility of 2 fucking AIs breaking together was not high. It was even more impossible for the counter to break as well, unless there was a problem with the network database at the headquarters. But was this possible? It was simply impossible. Well, even an earthquake could not damage the data in the bank's database. Therefore, there was only one truth in this matter. Zach was really rich, and he was super rich. At this time, Zach came in front of the deputy president with a smile and put his arm around his shoulder. "Come, help me carry the cash. But this time, I don't want $10 million in cash. I want $30 million in cash." The vice president didn't dare to be arrogant anymore. He said with embarrassment, "First of all, sir, we don't have that much cash. You have to make an appointment." Zach asked in surprise, "Why? Isn't it a rule that big clients can withdraw money to avoid making an appointment?" "I don't care. This rule was set by you, so you have to give me the money today. And I'm telling you clearly that if I can't get $30 million in cash today, I'll immediately transfer the $1 billion from your counter and sell the cards." "Hey, you said I'm evil, but I still want to transfer to another bank. I'll accept the handling fee. I just want your bank to investigate what caused such a large amount of money to be transferred to another bank, even at the expense of hundreds of thousands of service fees. Furthermore, it's in your bank now." Episode 228. Enemies didn't understand. Zach was very familiar with the procedure of the bank's investigation. He might not necessarily be rewarded for this meritorious service, but he would definitely be punished for his mistakes. This was not limited to the bank system. It was the same for every unit. So when he finished saying these words, the deputy president broke out in a cold sweat. He was afraid of offending Danny. He was also afraid that this kind of blame system would chase down his deputy president. But who would have thought that Zach, such a wealthy man, would pop out? In an instant, it caused his liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys to rupture. Sir, we can't do this. It will be very embarrassing for me if you do this," Zach asked seriously. What does it have to do with me if you are embarrassed? With just one sentence, the deputy president did not dare to fart. His face turned red. Zach walked back to Campbell with a smile and took back the cup of warm tea. Do you want to drink it or not? This cup of tea was made by a beauty. Don't waste it. If you don't drink it, give it to me. Campbell felt a little embarrassed. What beauty made it? Wasn't it made by her previously? At the same time, she was also very shocked. She had never thought that Zach, who had previously thought was a financial staff member, would be so generous. She had seen it clearly just now. What was displayed on the ATM screen was not a public account, but a private account. $1 billion in a private account. This was also a super VIP customer in the main bank. Zach did not pay attention to Campbell, who was lost in thought, and said to the vice president, "Come, do you still remember that little rabbit just now? If you don't remember, think about it yourself. When you're done thinking, come over and play with your ears perked up." After drinking the warm tea in his cup, Zach came in front of Danny. "After finishing one, it's your turn to be taught a lesson. Come, let me interview you. May I ask how little Danny is feeling right now?" Zach was very detestable. Not only did he interview Danny, but he also even used the cup as a microphone and placed it in front of Danny's mouth. Danny was much better now. He was not in as much pain as before. At the same time, he also remembered which rock Zach jumped out from. He had $1 billion in savings. After thinking about it for a while, he really couldn't think of any Marquez family in the city that was so rich. He was arrogant, not stupid. He knew that some people couldn't be provoked, so when he was arrogant, he always paid attention to his position. If he knew that Zach was here, he wouldn't have been so arrogant. However, he had already slapped him in the face, and it was a matter of face. He couldn't lose face like this. So he said to Zach, "Is $1 billion worth it? I added $3 billion worth of assets to my own accounts. Even if I sell them at a loss, I'll be richer than you." Tisk, tisk, tisk. Zach clicked his tongue in wonder. He didn't think that a family who opened a small and broken supermarket would be so rich. He asked Danny, "Is that money from your family?" Danny gritted his teeth and said, "Nonsense. Otherwise, it is from your family." Zach nodded. "Okay, you must bite the bullet. Don't let it go. Let me see if it's your family or not." After saying that, he turned to look at the vice president. "Hey, I asked you to learn how to jump around like a rabbit. Did I ask you to pretend to be a big tree? What are you doing there? Hurry up and jump." The deputy president was very unhappy, especially when he heard that Danny's family had more than $2 billion. He was even more unhappy. If he didn't jump around, he would offend Zach. After jumping around, he would offend Danny. Comparing the two, he felt that it was better to offend Zach. So after Zach's scolding, he came in front of Zach in shame and anger. "Dream on! I am a person with dignity. I will not bend to you." Impressive. He still knew the story of bending over for 5 meters of rice. However, the person in the book was not the same as him. Zach pointed at him with a smile. "Then straighten your back. Don't bend down." After saying that, Zach turned his head to Campbell, who was not far away. "Go. Help me call your president down. Tell him that my $1 billion is ready to leave." Campbell also did not know what Zach wanted to do, but since Zach was helping her and was very reliable, she naturally did as he said. After Campbell left, the deputy president laughed and even said, "Even if you call the president down, he will still be able to tell how big and small it is. Compared to Crystal Supermarket, your little money is not worthy of the president's attention. I think you are right." He patted the vice president's shoulder and then went to the big client room to sit and smoke. After a while, the deputy president and Danny went in. The two of them had to see how Zach died. After 5 minutes, Campbell brought the president to the big client room. On the way, the president had roughly understood what had happened, so so he felt that the vice president's actions were a little rash. At the very least, he had to figure out what Zach was doing. If Zach only had this $1 billion, then he naturally had to get out of here. Crystal Supermarket was so big, and this big customer was even envious of the Providential Bank. Of course, if they could see Zach's $1 billion, it would naturally be even better. The performance awards would be even better. Who would complain about having too much money? With a small plan in mind, the president went to the big client room. Hello! Sorry I was so slow. You two are both big clients of my industry. The moment the bureau chief saw the door, he wanted to smooth things over. He wanted to give each of them a way out, so he could just come down. After all, they were both rich, so why would they be angry? However, Zach clearly did not need this step. He wanted to slap Danny to death to satisfy himself. So he said, "Cut off the loan and cash flow of Crystal Supermarket. How much money do you need to deposit into your bank?" The president was stunned at that time. He never thought that Zach would actually have such an idea when he saw him. Danny, who was beside him, was also amused after being stunned for a moment. "You're an idiot, right? They will make profits from our loans. Do you think they will pinch us?" Campbell consciously stood behind Zach. "You are the idiot. Loans were the easiest to complete. Even if we were pressed very tightly, the annual missions would be overpaid because of connections. But the savings won't. Now that the online bank is robbing money too much, the deposit is the most important thing in the bank. If there was enough cash flow, it was very easy to strangle you." The vice president was very unhappy and scolded. "You are an employee of the bank. How can you tell anyone about the bank?" Campbell mocked. "Oh, so now you know that I am an employee of the bank. Didn't you fire me just now?" The vice president was at a loss of words. Danny did not know what to say either. The two of them looked at the president. The president smiled and started to fight. "Sir, it's better to resolve this grievance. I think..." As he spoke, Zach threw the cigarette box onto the table. $1 billion on the card, pursue another $1 billion. 3 years of regular funds. Break the financial chain of that small supermarket. The bank manager was stunned. Episode 229. Insolence. The president thought that it would be fine if the transfer stopped today. He didn't want to offend Danny and Zach. After the two sides had reached an agreement, the biggest profit would still be with him. How good would that be? If it really didn't work out, even if they kicked Zach out, they couldn't offend Crystal Supermarket. But no matter what, he never would have thought that Zach would suddenly say such a thing. A total of $2 billion periodic funds. Although it was not a deposit, this fund was also very impressive. It also made him have great results. But at this time, Danny opened his mouth and said, "I'll give $10 billion. Anyway, I can't take it out." The vice president chimed in. "That's right. I dare to say something like that. I'll pay $80 billion. Zach chuckled as he took out his phone and transferred $1 billion into the bank card. The next moment, he threw the bank card to the president. "Send someone to investigate." The president was in a high position and naturally could not speak on impulse. He wanted to see the truth. So even though Zach was very rude, he still very politely went to the bank staff to check the accounts. In less than half a minute, the message was sent back. "Okay, bank president, we just received a $1 billion transfer, and now the balance is $2 billion. The bank president almost vomited blood. He did not dare to believe that Zach really transferred the money. Which mobile bank could transfer $1 billion? It had been his whole life, and he had never heard of such a bank. But the employee wouldn't lie to him. Who would dare to lie about this? It wasn't like it was worth $3 or $5. There wasn't even a possibility that he was mistaken. At this moment, Zach leisurely flicked the ashes off the ground. He clearly didn't need an urn. Danny's face was shallow. he began to feel afraid. $2 billion in cash. He could play with it whenever he wanted. But how much real estate did the group behind him have? Now that he thought about it, it should be enough to crush the Crystal Supermarket. And what was rather awkward at that moment was that his $10 billion promise could not be met. He acted as if he had eaten a dead toad. He hadn't completely swallowed it yet, and his two legs were still kicking and pulling outside. Campbell could not help but feel proud when he saw this. She even laughed out loud, like a silver bell. It was especially pleasing to the ear. However, when it reached Danny's ears, it was quite ear-piercing, and it was so piercing that it made his face change color. After that, Zach flicked the cigarette butt directly onto the deputy president's big belly. The deputy president hurriedly used his hand to brush the ashes. "Hey, damn fatty, that's enough. What are you slapping for? I gave you a chance to jump, but you didn't jump. Instead, you rushed to play with me on a little motorcycle." The cow rumbled. Now that you've finished bragging about your earnings, when will $80 billion be credited to you? The deputy president was so embarrassed. He shamelessly smiled in front of Zach and said, "This is very embarrassing." Then the vice president was not done talking. Zach could not be bothered by him anymore. "You are just a dead toad. If you want to jump, hurry up. There is still one last chance. If you don't jump, you will really die." The vice president was very awkward. Such a big official, giving Campbell, this little girl, a vertical ear to jump around like a little rabbit in front of him, and even having to sing that kind of embarrassing song. How could he sing it? Thus, after thinking about it, he turned his gaze towards the president for help. At any rate, he was his subordinate soldier, so the president naturally had to protect him. So he said, "Sir, you see, this is a matter of tens of thousands of things. He values peace." Zach raised a finger again. "Pursue another $1 billion, $3 billion, and a 2-year periodic fund. Break the financial chain of the small supermarket for me. Whether it's okay or not, give me a quick reply." The president was really shocked, especially after Zach transferred the money. The staff member was stunned once again, indicating that he had transferred another $1 billion. This was money, not a man's thing. Even that thing couldn't be so fast. At least it could take 2 to 3 minutes. This is good. It comes as soon as you touch it, and soon it rises from $1 billion to $3 billion. Danny was so scared silly. How much money was this? Why did he spend $1 billion as if he was going to a small store to spend $10? It was so smooth and natural, and he didn't even have to frown at all. However, the deputy president had changed the direction of the situation. $3 billion. He wasn't afraid of offending Danny to death. He bought the entire Crystal Supermarket at the original price. That was the only price. Thus, he immediately lowered his head to Campbell. "Little Campbell, it was my bad attitude just now, but it was also for our bank. Although I have a reason and my initial intention is good, mistakes are still mistakes. I am willing to accept punishment and apologize to you." As he spoke, the deputy president squatted on the ground and placed 2 hands on his forehead with his left and right hands. He stretched out 2 fingers and picked up the little rabbit. "Little white rabbit, white and small." It took a lot of effort to jump around. It was really hard on this deputy president. However, Zach sneered at him and said, "What did you do earlier? I just told you that it was your last chance. You didn't cherish it. But now, you're jumping around shamelessly. Who are you jumping around for? Let me tell you, it's too late." The deputy president was very angry. He felt that Zach had gone too far. He was a deputy president, and he had already started to jump around. Furthermore, he was imitating Bunny in front of his employees. What else did Zach want? The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. The vice president stood up. He said angrily, This is the bank, not your home. No matter how much money you have, it is not you to act recklessly. Zach said, Is that so? I would like to see if having more money would allow you to act recklessly in your bank. After saying that, Zach transferred another $1 billion. Then, the staff inside said with a sobbing tone, Bank president, another $1 billion came in. Now it has reached $4 billion. Zach stretched out 4 fingers. $4 billion. 1 year periodic fund. Cut off the financial chain of that small supermarket. Okay? After a long pause, he subconsciously stuck out his tongue and licked his cracked lips. This was too fucking exciting. He had encountered a super tycoon. Sir, we respect your attitude and will consider your opinion. However, the bank has rules after all. I hope you can understand. We can't simply cut off the customer's financial chain, which will affect our future loans and the credibility of the bank. Although the guild leader said that he was in a difficult position, he was actually very happy in his heart. If it wasn't for the fact that he needed to put on an act in front of Zach and trick him to pay more money, the president would have knelt down and licked the soles of Zach's shoes. As expected, as he spoke, Zach fiddled with his phone again. The president was filled with anticipation. He thought that if he brought another $1 billion, he would be able to close the deal when he gathered the total of $6 billion. Although there were rules and regulations in the bank, it was not a problem for the finances of which company. As long as he grabbed onto this point, he could retrieve the funds he wanted. If he did not, he could go to the court to sue and immediately freeze all of his assets. Therefore, to cut off the financial chain of Crystal Supermarket, the bank president could really do it in a matter of minutes. But just as he was admiring, he suddenly realized that Zach had brought the phone to his ear. The next moment, Zach even said to the phone, Lewis, help me contact the president of the Goldman's Bank and pass me a message. I'm in their branch right now. I want to deposit $4 billion in a year's regular fund. The president and the vice president won't deposit it for me. I'll bring up a serious protest against it. The president was stunned. This was different from his original plan.